Quick question, sort of a lightning round for all of you. And all of you have focused on how the future is basically uncharted waters, especially for Congress and policymakers as they're trying to respond and react to all of this. And you didn't want to give legs to some bad ideas that Congress is considering, but I wonder if each of you could put out a good idea that Congress could pursue in any follow-on aid or relief packages.
Well, I'll start. I guess I think that for the immediate pandemic, I think that we just need to focus on what is the best thing we can do to keep businesses and workers on hold. Like keep them whole, or at least full enough that they can keep paying their bills, they can keep paying their essential bills, and sit tight for a while and then be ready to come back into the economy when it's safe to come back. So anything that, and I think that means that there's going to have to be more cash assistance to the states and localities, because they're the ones handing out the money primarily. They're the ones that are going to know how to hand out the money. So, and they're the ones that are going to face large bills. So for the short term, that's what I want to see. For the long term, I'm hoping that we come out on the other side and that everyone recognizes that we're going to have to raise more revenue to pay for this larger government.
All right, Tori, Josh, Bob, any quick feedback for Congress to put us on a good path forward?
I guess less than a policy prescription going forward, more just following on a little bit about what Diana's saying. We went into this crisis with debt to GDP of about 80%, and we're going to come out of it, and that number is going to be even larger. And the levels that we had going into this crisis were unsustainable. So absolutely, the levels that we're going to have coming out of this crisis are unsustainable. So it's abundantly important that once we get beyond this crisis and we start evaluating our strengths and our weaknesses as we responded to this crisis, that we also have a conversation that discusses, and I mean an adult conversation that addresses our priorities. We need to talk about reining in healthcare costs. We need to talk about Social Security. We need to talk about Medicare. We need to talk about funding the Highway Trust Fund. We need to have a more mature conversation about tax policy and tax expenditures. I heard someone said this the other day, and I thought it was very interesting and very pithy. We can't continue to have unhealthy conversations about expanding government services. We can't talk about having Canadian-style programs while still generating revenues along the lines of Mexico's tax policy. We cannot continue to spend at 23, 24% of GDP and tax at 18% of GDP. What that policy prescription is in the end, I don't know, but we definitely need to have an adult conversation, put all the facts on the table, stop lying to people that debt and deficits don't matter, stop lying to people that we can provide all of these things and not raise taxes. Americans need to sit down and have a conversation about what is appropriate, what our priorities are, and how we're all going to pay for it. Because frankly, there simply isn't enough money in the top 1% to pay for all of this.
And Chase, I know we're really out of time here, but I think that's really the important thing, because if Diane is right, and I suspect that she is, that on the other side of this, there'll be some programs that will last as add-ons to the budget, and may well be in terms of additional mandatory spending. But we can't, as Tori said, we can't just add that on a permanent basis and not pay for it. So it is going to call for a fundamental, if that's the choice, if the choice is to keep some of this stuff or to turn it into something permanent, it has to come with a willingness to pay for it. Because one thing that we can't do is I'm fine with $2.2 trillion in this bill, because there's a lot of stuff that needs to be done. You can't have people going broke and people going out of businesses going out of business. So we got to do what we got to do right now. But we can't do $2.2 trillion bills every couple of months for very long. At some point, we are going to have to I mean, assume the pandemic is combated, we're going to have to determine what this new normal is, and it's going to maybe be a new definition of fiscal responsibility, but it means that we're going to have to pay for any new stuff that we have and still figure out how to pay for the stuff that was already on the table that we hadn't paid for. That discussion can wait till we're all not wearing blue gloves and working from home, but it's a discussion that we're going to have.
And I'll just wrap it up by saying I'm pretty concerned that Congress is not going to put the pedal to the metal right now, and that's kind of my greatest fear. And you know, I think they acted with remarkable haste, and I think they went appropriately big. But if you compare what they did to what other countries did, they did not go bigger. And in some cases, I think they were a little bit short-sighted by not putting in things that could automatically trigger down the road. Canada just did $2,000 per person for 4 months, compared to our $1,200 per person one time. I know the UK and some other European countries offered to just pay payrolls at 100 or 80 to 100% for 4 months. So our Congress acted, and they did quickly and appropriately, but they still left a lot out there to be done. And so again, the best thing we could do both for the economy and honestly for the long term is to make this a short-term problem so that we can move back to normal kind of fiscal policy discussions.
Yes, and just to get in the last word, because I'm the executive director, you reminded me of something, which is that one good idea, Chase, I think that you might do is a better use of automatic stabilizers. We have quite a few in the budget that what automatic stabilizers do is just if you get into a rough patch in the economy, it's like unemployment compensation as part of automatic stabilizers. Some spending goes up to help people, some taxes go down, and you help stabilize the budget of the economy. I think what this has shown is it might be a more aggressive use of automatic stabilizers in some way could help be part of that discussion. So that you don't have to have these constant, every couple of months, pass a new bill.
And as you all mentioned, we are out of time, so this is where we're going to have to leave it for this week. This is Facing the Future. I've been talking to Concord Coalition Executive Director Bob Bixby, Policy Director Tori Gorman, Senior Policy Advisor Josh Gordon, and Economist Mom and Director of Outreach and Senior Advisor at the Penn Wharton Budget Model, Diane Lim. We discussed the recent relief packages passed by Congress, what additional aid might be coming, and the economic impact of the pandemic. Thank you all for joining Facing the Future.